The stars stretched endlessly across the dark sky, glittering like scattered diamonds over the vast emptiness of space. Among them, a small human ship glided silently, its engines humming softly, almost like a whisper against the void. This was not just another exploration vessel. It carried the most curious species in the galaxy: humans. They were known in whispers among alien civilizations as unpredictable, clever, and strangely cautious. Inside the ship, Captain Elara Thompson stood at the observation deck, her eyes scanning the endless starfield. She was calm, composed, but her mind raced with questions. Their mission was simple on paper: explore uncharted sectors, gather knowledge, and make contact with alien civilizations. But this part of the galaxy was different. Reports spoke of warlike species, empires constantly clashing for power, and worlds destroyed without mercy. Humanity had come far, but even humans knew the dangers of stepping into a battlefield without knowing the rules. As the human ship approached the outer rim of the Tarion cluster, sensors began to pick up strange signals, energy readings, movement, and patterns that did not match anything in their databases. Elara frowned. "Prepare the scanning drones. I want a full analysis of whatever is out there," she ordered. Her voice was calm, but the tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew the stakes. A single misstep could mean disaster. Meanwhile, in a nearby sector, the aliens observed them. Tall, angular beings with translucent skin and glowing eyes called the humans fascinating. They had been watching humans for decades, curious about this species that had survived so many wars on their home planet, yet rarely, if ever, started one. Their leader Zarnok leaned forward, studying the small ship through their sensors. "Why do they never attack first?" he whispered to his council. His voice was like the scraping of metal, cold and sharp. "They should be weak. But they are not. There is something dangerous beneath their calm." Back on the human ship, Elara's crew worked quietly but efficiently. The drones extended into the void, scanning the Tarion cluster for threats. Suddenly, alarms blared. Energy readings spiked, and large shapes moved in the distance. Ships massive and bristling with weaponry. Aliens. The humans had been detected. Tension rose in the command room, but Elara did not panic. Humans were not known for rushing into battle without reason. Their strength lay in observation, strategy, and patience. The aliens' ships closed in, their sensors active, their weapons trained on the tiny human vessel. A voice came over the alien communications, rough and commanding. "Identify yourselves. Are you here to fight or surrender?" The humans listened carefully. There was no immediate response. Humans had a way of communicating differently, through calm, deliberate actions rather than loud threats. Elara finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. "We come in peace. We are explorers. We wish to observe and learn." The alien leader seemed puzzled. Most species would have attacked on sight or shown submission. Humans did neither. They simply moved with purpose, confident but non-aggressive. Zarnok's eyes narrowed. Could a species so small, so seemingly defenseless, actually be a threat? Hours passed. The humans demonstrated careful movements, scanning the alien ships, recording data and avoiding confrontation. The aliens watched in disbelief as humans refused to draw weapons, refused to retaliate, yet managed to maintain complete control of their situation. "How can they be so calm?" one alien whispered. "They should be terrified." But fear was not the same for humans. They had survived floods, plagues, wars, and famine on their home planet. They had learned to wait, to observe, to think ahead. And that patience, that intelligence made them unpredictable. For every aggressive move the aliens made, humans had already planned 3 ways to adapt. And yet, not once did they fire a shot. As night fell on the cluster, Elara and her crew gathered to discuss their next steps. "We need to understand their motives," she said. "We can't afford to make enemies before we know them." Her words were measured, careful, showing the human tendency to think long-term, rather than reacting with brute force. Meanwhile, Zarnok called a council meeting. "Humans are not like other species," he admitted reluctantly. "They are weak in strength, yes, but their minds, they are dangerous. They do not fight like we do. They fight with strategy, patience, and unpredictability. We cannot underestimate them." For the first time, doubt crept into the hearts of the warlike aliens. The human's calm, collected nature was more terrifying than any weapon. Suddenly, a small alien scout ship approached the human vessel. It hovered, scanning, trying to intimidate, but the humans did not flinch. Instead, they extended a beacon, sending out a peaceful signal in a universal frequency, inviting communication. Zarnok's sensors detected the unusual calm. "Why do they not panic?" he muttered. "Why do they not fight? Something is wrong with them." Or brilliant. Alara smiled quietly as she watched the scout. Humans had learned long ago that survival was not about aggression. It was about intelligence, patience, and understanding your enemy before engaging. If the aliens wanted war, humans would be ready, but only when necessary. Until then, observation and learning were their greatest weapons. By the time the first Tarion sun rose over the cluster, both humans and aliens had learned something vital. Humans were not simple prey, as many civilizations assumed. They were cunning, patient, and unpredictable. The aliens left with a mix of respect and fear, realizing that in a galaxy ruled by war, humans were an anomaly, a species that avoided conflict, yet held the potential to change the balance of power entirely. As Alara looked out at the stars, she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, but humans had survived worse than alien fleets. They survived because they understood something every other species seemed to forget. Power was not always about strength. Sometimes the quiet, patient, clever mind was far more dangerous than the sharpest weapon. And somewhere in the darkness, the aliens whispered among themselves, fearful and curious. "Why do humans avoid war?" they asked. The answer was simple, yet terrifying. Humans were not avoiding war because they were weak. They were avoiding war because they were wise. And the galaxy had not yet seen the full extent of their power. The silence of space was broken by the faint hum of the human ship gliding through the Tarion cluster. Captain Alara Thompson stood at the command deck, her gaze fixed on the distant alien vessels that had been observing them since their arrival. Unlike most species, humans did not panic when faced with a threat. Their movements were calm, deliberate, and calculated. But the aliens were impatient. They had waited long enough to see if these humans would act weak, as most civilizations would. Instead, humans remained still. Yet their presence radiated a subtle, undeniable strength that no one could define. It did not take long for the aliens to decide to test them. A fleet of sleek black warships emerged from the shadows, cutting through the star field with terrifying speed. Their weapons glinted ominously, reflecting the distant starlight like teeth ready to bite. The human crew felt the tension, but no one panicked. Sensors detected the enemy's movement patterns, their speed, their weapon range, and even their scanning frequencies. The humans were observing, learning, recording. For every action the aliens made, the humans calculated 5 possible reactions. Their strategy was not to attack, but to understand. And in understanding, they held power beyond brute force. The first engagement was subtle, but intense. An alien frigate swooped close, sending a warning pulse toward the human vessel. The pulse was strong enough to disrupt systems, a common tactic to scare weaker species into submission. Yet the humans responded not with fear, but with precision. They adjusted their shields at the exact moment the pulse hit, absorbing the energy harmlessly. Small drones launched from the human ship, flying in intricate patterns, scanning the frigate and mapping its weak points. Every move was measured, every decision deliberate. The aliens began to whisper among themselves. This was not weakness. This was control. Hours stretched into what felt like an eternity. The aliens increased their aggression, testing different tactics. Feints, decoys, energy blasts, and electronic interference. Still, the humans did not retaliate with weapons. Instead, they used clever maneuvers to evade attacks, redirect energy, and even confuse the alien fleet with sudden, unpredictable movements. The alien commanders grew frustrated. How could a species so small, so seemingly fragile, withstand these tests without a single strike fired in anger? Slowly, the realization dawned. Humans were dangerous, but not in the way anyone expected. Their strength was not in their weapons, but in their minds. Captain Alara finally addressed her crew. "Remember, this is the first test," she said calmly, her eyes scanning the control panels. "Our goal is not to fight. Our goal is to survive and learn. They want to see if we panic. They want to see if we react. They will learn that humans do not react the way others do. That is our advantage." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of centuries of human survival instinct. Humans had always learned from history: wars, disasters, famines, and uprisings. Each challenge made them stronger, smarter, and more patient. And now, in this strange sector of the galaxy, those lessons were about to pay off in ways the aliens could not yet understand. The aliens tried one last test, a coordinated attack involving multiple ships, lasers cutting through the darkness like lightning. The humans executed a flawless defensive formation, redirecting energy through reflective shields, using gravity fields to mislead the enemy, and creating false sensor readings that made it impossible for the aliens to target them accurately. The result was not just survival, it was dominance without aggression. Zarnok, the alien leader, watched in disbelief as his fleet failed repeatedly to land a single hit. His officers began to murmur nervously. Could this species, small and unarmed in appearance, truly be a threat to their war-driven empire? The answer, they realized with a mix of fear and awe, was yes. Humans were not weak. Humans were terrifying, but in a way no one had anticipated. As the alien fleet retreated to regroup, the human ship sailed on calmly as if nothing had happened. Captain Alara turned to her crew, a slight smile on her face. "They will come back," she said. "But next time they will respect us or regret underestimating us." The crew nodded. They had survived the first test, not through firepower, but through intelligence, strategy, and patience. This was what made humans unique in the galaxy. They avoided war, not because they were afraid, but because they understood it better than any other species. They fought only when necessary, and even then their greatest weapon was their mind. By the time they left the Tarion cluster, whispers of the humans' abilities had begun to spread among alien civilizations. Ships from other sectors monitored their path, curious and cautious. The humans were no longer just explorers. They were a mystery, a species that refused to conform to the galaxy's rules of war, yet still commanded respect and fear. And as Captain Alara looked out at the stars, she knew this was only the beginning. The first test had been survived, but the galaxy held countless challenges ahead. Each would require patience, intelligence, and strategy, the very qualities that made humans unlike any other species they had ever encountered. Humans had passed the first test, but the story of why they avoided war, why they survived where others failed, was only beginning to unfold. The galaxy had seen their restraint, their wisdom, and their cleverness, and though the aliens did not yet understand it fully, humans had already shown a truth that would echo through the stars for generations. The mind could be mightier than the sword, and patience could be more powerful than aggression. Long before humans had ever reached the stars, their species had endured trials that would have destroyed most civilizations. On Earth, wars had torn nations apart, plagues had claimed millions, and natural disasters had reshaped continents. Yet humanity survived, not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, and not because they had the deadliest weapons, but because they learned. They observed, adapted, and remembered. Every mistake became a lesson, every tragedy a tool to understand the world better. This was the hidden history that no other species truly knew, the silent story that gave humans an advantage no alien could measure. Captain Alara gathered her crew in the ship's main observation hall. The Tarion cluster stretched before them, filled with stars and distant suns, but their attention was on the lessons humanity carried within them. "Every species we meet out there judges strength by weapons or fleets," she said. "They do not understand that history shapes strategy. Humans have survived countless threats because we plan, we wait, and we learn. That is why we avoid war. Not because we fear it, but because we understand it better than anyone." Her words hung in the air, quiet yet heavy with meaning. The crew nodded, knowing that their survival depended not on power but on wisdom. Alara activated the ship's archives, displaying images of human history: soldiers in trenches, cities rising from ruins, scientists racing against time during epidemics, all flashes of the past, moments of human resilience. The aliens might see humans as fragile, but every event had forged a species that understood the cost of violence. Humans were patient because patience had saved them before. They were clever because cleverness had allowed them to overcome disasters far greater than any alien fleet. Each lesson from Earth's history had been stored in their minds and their culture, passed down from generation to generation. And now, in this distant part of the galaxy, these lessons would make the humans unpredictable and almost impossible to defeat. Meanwhile, on a hidden observation post far from the humans, the Alien Council watched recordings of Earth's history, holographic data sent from scouts, intercepted from signals. Zarnok and his officers murmured among themselves, astonished. How have they survived such chaos? One alien asked. Every species we know would have destroyed itself long ago. Zarnok's glowing eyes narrowed. It is not their weapons that protect them, he said slowly. It is their memory, their ability to learn from the past. They avoid war because they understand what war truly costs. And perhaps, he whispered, they will use that understanding against us in ways we cannot imagine. The council fell silent, the weight of the humans' hidden history settling over them like a shadow. Back on the human ship, a soft alert interrupted the discussion. A distant alien vessel approached, observing them silently. The crew did not rush. They had survived countless threats, and they knew that rash action was dangerous. Instead, they analyzed, calculated, and planned. Every movement the alien ship made was recorded, every signal studied. Humans did not fear the unknown. They prepared for it. They had learned from history that panic and aggression often led to destruction. The alien ship, sensing no immediate threat, hesitated. It was the humans' calm, deliberate approach that made them so dangerous, quiet, yet brimming with hidden power. As night fell across the Tarian cluster, Alara reflected on their journey. Humanity's survival was not a secret. It was written in their history. Yet few species recognized it. Humans avoided war not because they were weak, but because they understood it. Every strategy, every plan, every restraint came from centuries of learning. The aliens might see them as cautious, but the truth was far more terrifying. Humans were patient, clever, and unpredictable, capable of surviving challenges that would destroy other civilizations. And in this knowledge lay the seeds of their future victories. The crew stared at the stars, each lost in thought. Somewhere in the galaxy, countless civilizations continued their endless cycles of conflict, unable to see what humans had already mastered. The lessons of Earth, hidden in their history, gave humans an edge no one else had. And when the aliens returned for the next challenge, they would find that humans were not just survivors. They were strategists, thinkers, and a species whose understanding of war and peace made them a force unlike any the galaxy had ever faced. Humans had arrived in the Tarion cluster as newcomers, but their hidden history was already rewriting the rules of engagement. The aliens would soon learn that strength was not always measured by weapons or fleets. Sometimes it was measured by patience, intelligence, and the lessons of the past. And in that hidden history lay a power far greater than any laser, far sharper than any blade, a power that could change the galaxy forever. The Tarion cluster stretched endlessly, a vast field of stars, planets, and shadows where danger could strike without warning. Captain Alara Thompson stood on the bridge of the human ship, calm as ever, her eyes scanning the blinking signals on the console. The aliens were no longer just observers. They had become challengers. Every fleet, every ship, every signal carried the weight of potential war. Yet humans did not panic. They had a secret strategy, one that relied not on aggression but on intelligence, patience, and cunning. As the alien fleets tightened their patrols, attempting to corner the human vessel, Alara called her crew to the strategy room. Holographic maps flickered to life, displaying enemy formations, energy flows, and planetary positions. They think strength comes from weapons, she said softly, her voice steady. We know strength comes from understanding. Every move they make tells us something. Every attack, every pattern reveals their weaknesses, and we will use that knowledge to survive. To win without firing a single shot. Her crew leaned in, eyes sharp, minds focused. Humans had always believed in preparation, not brute force. The first step in the secret strategy was observation. The human sensors, far more advanced than the aliens suspected, monitored every energy pulse, every engine thrust, every weapon calibration. Drones flew ahead, almost invisible, recording alien behavior and transmitting it back to the ship. The aliens tried to hide their intentions, But humans saw patterns in chaos. They predicted ambushes, avoided traps, and anticipated every aggressive move. For the humans, survival was not about strength. It was about foresight. And in the Tarion cluster, foresight was more powerful than the deadliest weapon. Next came misdirection. The humans began subtle maneuvers, small adjustments that confused the alien fleet. Shields flickered in unexpected ways, engines altered trajectories at the last moment, and sensor readings produced illusions of movement. Aliens aimed weapons at empty space, misled by carefully calculated false targets. Every mistake the aliens made was recorded, every weakness analyzed. Ilara watched silently, knowing that each moment of confusion brought them closer to victory. It was a game of minds, not firepower. A game humans had perfected over centuries. The final element of the strategy was patience. Humans did not strike, did not attack, and did not escalate conflict. Instead, they waited for the perfect moment to act. Aliens grew frustrated, believing the humans were weak, indecisive, or fearful. Zarnok, the alien commander, could not understand why the humans remained calm, why they did not retaliate. Why do they wait? He demanded. Are they cowards or fools? But the answer was neither. Humans waited because they knew that every premature move could cost lives. Their strategy was not immediate victory. It was inevitable survival. As days passed, humans demonstrated that patience could be weaponized. They lured alien ships into predictable paths, then used gravity fields and energy deflections to guide them harmlessly away. When aliens attempted electronic interference, humans countered with complex algorithms that turned attacks back on their origin. Every attempt by the aliens to intimidate, trap, or destroy was met with silent, precise countermeasures. They were learning too late that humans' greatest strength was strategy itself. The humans' calm, deliberate actions unsettled the aliens. Every failed attack, every miscalculation made them question their assumptions. Could a species that refused to fight really be dangerous? Zarnok's officers whispered among themselves, fear and admiration mingling in their voices. The humans were teaching a lesson no other species had ever learned. War was not won by weapons alone. Strategy, patience, intelligence, and understanding history could outmatch fleets, lasers. In brute force, Captain Ilara stood at the observation deck, gazing at the stars as her crew executed the final maneuvers. They had survived the first test. They had endured the challenges, observed the enemy, and proved that humans could triumph without engaging in direct combat. And yet the secret strategy was more than just survival. It was a statement. Humans were not weak. Humans were not simple. They were clever, adaptable, and unpredictable. And the galaxy would soon learn that underestimating humans was the gravest mistake any civilization could make. By the time the alien fleet retreated for the second time, murmurs of awe and fear spread through their ranks. The humans had avoided war, outsmarted superior forces, and survived where most species would have perished. Zarnok realized, perhaps too late, that these humans were unlike any species he had encountered. Their strength was hidden, wrapped in patience and intelligence, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And when that moment came, no fleet, no weapon, and no empire could stop them. The crew of the human ship returned to their stations, silently celebrating the success of their strategy. Captain Ilara knew that the galaxy was watching, and that the next challenge would be even greater. But she was confident as always. Humans did not fear the unknown. They understood it, studied it, and used it to their advantage. And in the Tarion cluster, one truth was becoming clear. Humans avoided war not because they were weak, but because they were wise. And wisdom, in the wrong hands or in the right hands, was a power greater than any weapon. The calm of the Tarion cluster was broken by sudden alarms aboard the human ship. Sensors blared, warning of multiple alien fleets converging from all directions. This was no ordinary skirmish or simple test. The aliens had grown impatient. They had observed, probed, and tested the humans for days, and now they were unleashing their full power. Ships of terrifying size and speed cut through the darkness like predators closing in on prey. The humans had faced threats before, but nothing like this. The ultimate challenge had arrived. Captain Ilara Thompson stood at the command deck, her expression steady, eyes scanning the overwhelming displays. "This is what we prepared for," she said calmly, her voice cutting through the tension. Remember our strategy. We survive first, we observe second, and we act only when the time is perfect. No rash moves. Patience is our weapon. Her crew, trained for countless simulations and real dangers, moved with precision, adjusting shields, rerouting power, and analyzing the enemy's formations. Despite the looming threat, there was no panic. Humans did not fear the storm, they understood it. The alien fleet struck in waves, coordinated attacks designed to overwhelm any defense. Energy beams sliced through space, aiming to tear the human vessel apart. But humans were prepared. They activated multi-layered defenses, reflective shields that redirected energy, decoy drones that mimicked the ship's signature, and subtle gravitational distortions that misled targeting systems. Every attempt by the aliens to trap or destroy them was met with calm, calculated countermeasures. The humans were not fighting. They were orchestrating survival with intelligence that no weapon could match. Hours turned into tense, nerve-wracking cycles. The aliens tried everything. Feints, hidden ambushes, sudden bursts of energy, and coordinated strikes designed to divide the human crew. Still, humans remained one step ahead. They predicted the enemy's movements, adapted instantly, and turned each threat into an opportunity. Sensors recorded weaknesses in alien formations, energy output fluctuations, and predictable maneuvers. Every failure by the alien fleets deepened their confusion and growing fear. How do they anticipate us? Zarnok hissed. They have no weapons, yet they move like masters of war. Then came the turning point. The humans did not attack with lasers or missiles, but with strategy far deadlier than brute force. Using gravitational fields, they guided alien ships into precise locations, creating natural traps where fleets were forced into collisions or energy feedback loops. They manipulated the environment, asteroid belts, radiation fields, and magnetic storms to their advantage, turning the universe itself into a shield and a weapon. By the time the aliens realized what was happening, half their fleet had been neutralized, not by fire, but by cunning. Captain Alara's calm demeanor inspired her crew. Every movement was deliberate, every action calculated to survive and outsmart the enemy. The humans demonstrated that war was not about who could fire the fastest or have the largest fleet. It was about intelligence, patience, and foresight. Aliens who relied on raw power were left scrambling, exposed and humiliated by a species they had assumed was weak. Humans had turned the ultimate challenge into a lesson. Strength alone could never match the mind. Zarnok, the alien commander, watched helplessly as his fleet faltered. He had assumed superiority in numbers, weapons, and experience. Yet these humans, small and seemingly defenseless, had outmaneuvered him at every turn. His officers whispered in disbelief. They are not just survivors, one admitted. They are strategists, masters of patience. We cannot predict them. Fear and respect mingled in their voices. For the first time, the alien leader realized that the humans' avoidance of war was not cowardice. It was calculation. Their restraint was the very tool that made them untouchable. The human ship, calm amidst the chaos, emerged unscathed. The aliens, battered and humiliated, retreated into the shadows of the cluster. The ultimate challenge had been met, and humans had not fired a single aggressive shot. The victory was not just survival. It was proof that intellect, strategy, and restraint could triumph over raw power. Captain Alara allowed herself a small smile. Her crew had passed the most dangerous test yet, proving to themselves and to the galaxy that humans were unique, formidable, and unpredictable. As the dust of battle settled, the crew reflected on what they had accomplished. The ultimate challenge had tested every skill, every lesson learned from history, and every ounce of human ingenuity. Humans had survived, adapted, and thrived, not by fighting, but by thinking. Their secret was simple, yet devastatingly effective. War was a tool, not a necessity. And in their hands, even the most powerful enemies could be outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and overcome without firing a shot. By the time the human ship sailed onward, leaving the battered alien fleets behind, the galaxy had begun to take notice. Whispers spread among alien civilizations, stories of a species that avoided war, but could survive the impossible. Humans had passed the ultimate challenge, and in doing so, had proven the very reason they avoided war. Intelligence, patience, and strategy were mightier than any weapon. And somewhere, in the shadows of distant systems, other alien fleets began to prepare, wondering if they too would fall victim to the humans' subtle, terrifying strength. The Tarion cluster was quiet once more, but the silence carried tension. Alien fleets lingered at the edges of scanned space, wary and uncertain. They had witnessed the humans survive impossible challenges, outsmarting overwhelming forces without firing a shot. Every failed attack had taught them that humans were not ordinary prey. Yet the full truth had not yet been revealed. Captain Alara Thompson knew it was time. The galaxy needed to understand why humans avoided war, and why that avoidance was humanity's greatest strength. Alara gathered her crew in the main observation hall. The holographic displays flickered, showing past encounters with alien fleets, simulations of possible threats, and projections of potential outcomes. "The galaxy sees humans as fragile, defenseless, and cautious," she said softly, her eyes scanning each crew member. "But they do not understand the reason behind our restraint. We do not fight because we want to avoid war. We fight only when necessary. Survival, strategy, and knowledge guide our actions. Strength is not only in weapons, it is in understanding, patience, and the careful use of power." The alien observers, hidden in the darkness of nearby systems, intercepted transmissions of the humans' data. They began to piece together the pattern. Every human action, every moment of calm during battle, every calculated maneuver was a statement. Humans had survived countless wars on their home planet, learning the devastating cost of aggression. Their philosophy was clear: war destroys more than it creates. Intelligence, planning, and patience could achieve what armies never could. To the humans, violence was a last resort, not a first instinct. As the aliens analyzed the humans' history, the realization hit them. Humans were not weak. They were masters of strategy, able to predict, adapt, and survive under conditions that would have destroyed any other species. Their avoidance of war was not fear, it was wisdom. Each restraint, each measured response was a demonstration of intelligence far beyond brute force. Zarnok, the alien commander, found himself unable to argue. The humans had turned restraint into a weapon, patience into power, and intelligence into dominance. The revelation was terrifying. Back on the human ship, Captain Alara smiled faintly as the crew reviewed recent events. "They understand now," she said. "Humans do not attack because we are wise enough to know that war should only be used when all other options fail. Our power lies in our mind, our strategy, and our ability to survive where others fail. That is why they fear us, respect us, and will think twice before challenging us again." Her words were calm, but the weight of truth resonated throughout the hall. The humans had shown the galaxy that avoiding war was not weakness, it was mastery. The alien fleets, hesitant and uncertain, began to retreat further into the edges of scanned space. Fear mingled with awe in their ranks. They had underestimated humans at every turn, thinking caution meant fragility. But now they understood. Humans were not only capable of surviving impossible odds, they were capable of outthinking and outlasting every challenge without ever resorting to unnecessary violence. Humanity's true strength was no longer hidden. It had been revealed, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Even as the humans sailed forward into uncharted space, the revelation lingered across the stars. Humans avoided war not because they lacked power, but because they understood it more deeply than any other species. Their restraint, patience, and intelligence made them unpredictable, formidable, and in ways the galaxy was only beginning to grasp, unstoppable. The revelation was simple, yet terrifying. The greatest strength of humans was not in their weapons, it was in their wisdom. And the galaxy, for the first time, had no choice but to respect it. The Tarion cluster was calm now, but the memory of the humans' brilliance lingered among the alien fleets. Ships that had once approached with confidence now kept their distance, unsure how to face a species that had survived impossible odds without firing a single shot. Captain Alara Thompson stood on the observation deck of her ship, her eyes scanning the distant stars. The challenge was over, yet the lesson remained. Humans were not just survivors, they were masters of patience, intelligence, and strategy. Zarnok, the alien commander, convened his council in a shadowed chamber aboard the retreating flagship. "We have underestimated them at every turn," he admitted, his voice heavy with reluctant respect. "They avoid war, not because they are weak, but because they understand it better than any species we know. Every move, every pause, every decision was deliberate. They are remarkable," the officers murmured among themselves. Fear and awe mingled in their voices, a mixture unfamiliar to beings who had dominated countless civilizations. For the first time, the aliens recognized that humans were not just clever, they were dangerous in ways they could not fully predict. Meanwhile, on the human ship, Captain Alara addressed her crew. "We have survived the ultimate test," she said, her voice calm but filled with quiet pride. "We did not fight unnecessarily, yet we proved our strength. The galaxy will remember this. We have shown that restraint, intelligence, and strategy are more powerful than weapons. This is why humans avoid war, not out of fear but out of wisdom." Her crew listened intently, knowing that this victory was more than just survival. It was a declaration to the stars that humanity could not be underestimated. As the humans set course for new exploration, whispers of their deeds spread across the galaxy. Alien fleets in distant systems recorded the events, shared the stories, and revised their strategies. Humans were no longer just explorers. They were a force subtle yet unstoppable, clever yet patient, unpredictable yet disciplined, and somewhere, deep within the shadows of uncharted space, other civilizations began to take note, wondering when, or if, they would encounter the humans themselves. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's reputation as a species of unparalleled intelligence and restraint was only beginning to grow. But even in this moment of triumph, the humans remained humble. They knew that the galaxy was vast and full of unknown threats, and that their greatest challenge might still lie ahead. Captain Alara gazed at the stars, knowing that their journey was far from over. The humans had earned respect through their strategy and wisdom, but the universe was not finished testing them. And as the alien fleets retreated, a new unseen observer watched from the darkness, a mysterious presence that had noticed the humans' capabilities and would remember them. The story of humanity's survival, restraint, and brilliance was far from over. The humans continued onward, calm, collected, and prepared. They had proven the galaxy wrong at every turn, demonstrating that the avoidance of war was not weakness, but mastery. Their reputation would precede them, spreading across star systems like whispers of an unstoppable force, guided by intelligence, patience, and strategy. And somewhere, in the unseen corners of space, the next challenge awaited. The humans were ready, and the galaxy would soon learn that respecting humanity was not a choice. It was a necessity.